Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Ius Laboris webinar. My name is Gabriela Lascurain. I'm from the central team at Ius Laboris, and I will be facilitating the session for you today. For today's webinar, will be given by a set of panelists from our Ukraine firm, Vasil Kisil Partners. We have Oksana Voynarovska, Volodymyr Igonin, Vitalii Meliankov, and our moderator, Burkard Göpfert, from our German law firm, Kliemt.HR Lawyers. On today's agenda, our panelists will talk about two main topics. The first, establishing and maintaining the rule of law, and second, the business and foreign investment landscape. Before we kick off the session, I will clarify a couple of points on the housekeeping side. If you have any questions throughout the session, you can use the Q&A tab to send your questions to us, and the panelists will answer as many as they can. You can, of course, also reach out to the panelists by email after the webinar. Okay, that's all for me. Go ahead, Burkard. You're welcome to start.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody for joining this webinar or later on listening to our recording. We're very pleased to have you again as an audience, even though we're not pleased to be announcing yet another webinar on the Ukraine war situation, because we've been hoping that things will be over one day, but it looks like this is still something that is keeping on and keeping on. And I still remember, Oksana, when we had the first webinar of this kind, I came over to the Ukraine. It was an audacious event, and I think it was one of my most amazing and challenging visits in my life. You have been going through this day by day, and we are very happy to have you all here, at least on the screen, alive and well, even though we know that you have lost a lot of family members and friends during the last 3 years, which is horrible and deplorable. Nevertheless, we wanted to remind everybody that this war is still going on, even though we can read about this every day in our papers. For us as an organization, Ius Laboris, as a global network, it is one of our partner firms that we're trying to follow as much as we can, as you are on the ground in the Ukraine. And we also want to always make this as a kind of signal to our ongoing support and thinking of you all as a team. And I'm particularly pleased today that we are not limiting this to employment law like we did the last two times when we were talking, Oksana, but we wanted to give a little bit of a flavor of other legal departments in your firm that may also become more and more relevant as we move on. We all know that people is desperately hoping for peace, even though the conditions for peace can never be conditions that are not amicable and acceptable to the Ukrainian people. And we are following the news with great concern, as you can imagine, as we read them day by day these days. Nevertheless, the first question that I always have on this memorable day, Oksana, is how is life in the Ukraine, in Kiev today? You just started that you've been trying to get into the city today, but it was impossible because so many politicians are coming to visit your country, in particular today, which I think is good or bad. But tell us a little bit of a flavor at the beginning of your life, day-to-day life in Kiev these days.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being so devoted and to Ukraine and to my country and to this sad war we experienced for the recent three years. I couldn't even imagine last 3 years ago when it started. I think that nobody could, me personally, we couldn't believe that it can last that long. So we are here to just share some feelings, thoughts, and observations. How we live and how we practice law during the martial times. We call it now the war and life balance. It's not life and work balance for us. It's life and war balance for us. And yeah, as I mentioned, I was not able to get to my office today because a lot of international delegations in the city. That's I think that we could be a little bit pretty much sure that today we will have no massive missiles attack. But what we are experiencing for the recent couple of days, every night, we have a massive drone attacks, and because of that, we have a very highly polluted air. For example, today we've got a warning from the municipal authorities that you should not go for a walk today because the air is very, very polluted because of the drones and the gas air they're using. That's why this is like the reality we have. And coming back to the main question about the life in Ukraine, and we can I think that we can say that for these 3 years, Ukraine has shown the world the power of resilience and courage and unity. And I believe that we as a country just have been creating a human shield for years, protecting Western people and Western countries from barbarians. And we've been fighting in such a manner for 11 years already. It's not a 3 years anniversary of the war, but if we just see the short-term history, but if we look deeper in the history of Ukraine and Russian opposition, it's already hundreds of years. And I think it would be appropriate to mention that 3 years ago, Putin and, to be frank, and our international partners just assessed that ability of the state authorities and people of Ukraine to resist the attack, this maximum of 3 days. But we survived, and we've been able to do that for already to oppose the full force of the Russian military machine for already 3 years, and nobody knows how long it will last further. And for us, it's difficult to assess because we are still in the middle of the process. But I think that we are showing more resilience that we even could expect from ourselves, that even we think we can. Of course, we are not perfect, but we don't know who would have done a better job. What I mean, if Burkard, you experienced that 2 years ago, but if you found yourself today in Ukraine, in Kyiv or in some other cities, of course not very close to the frontier, but I mean in the major part of Ukraine, you can see banks, universities, theaters, restaurants, cafes are open despite the massive attacks and shelling and constant power cuts. When, as we know, in some country, everything just stops when it just snows. And despite all these challenges, the state authorities and courts are operating in a normal, if I can say that, in a normal order. Even during the bombing alerts, and the courts are often still open, still operate. Even in such close to the frontier cities as Kharkiv. For example, now I have a court case in Kharkiv, and there are only three judges working in the civil court of Kharkiv. And I just admire the bravery of that people, because Kharkiv is very heavily bombed. It is very close. It's 40 kilometers from Russia, from the border, and it is massively and desperately bombed almost every day, and far beyond what we can experience in Kiev. But that
is there still a formal courthouse? Is there still a normal courthouse where you go? Or, yeah.
Yes, and they still operate, and they still doing their job. I mean, this is continuing this rule of law and upholding the judicial system. There's only 3 of them, and they get just the normal salary the other judges get, but they are every day they come to their work, to the courthouse, and they hear the cases.
How do you travel there? If you go there, do you take your car?
No, I do it via video conference. I do not travel to Kharkiv. This is too dangerous, I mean. And I do not put such much risk on that case.
And do they hear all kind of cases? So employment law is just one of the areas that they're dealing with?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, whatever comes in.
Yeah, they hear the civil cases, the family law cases. Of course, we have like a separate jurisdiction. Commercial courts and Commercial Court of Kharkiv also operates, and the appellate instances of both, and administrative as well, and all the appellate instances of these 3 branches of the court system, they still operate.
And under the martial laws, like the nature of the cases, are they limited to, I could imagine, super important issues and less important issues, or how does it work? Like, or can everybody bring claims whenever they feel like bringing a claim?
Exactly. Everything is just the same before the war. Everybody can bring the claim, and the judge, subject, of course, that everything is done properly from the procedural point of view. There is no limitations because of the martial law. And
where do the martial laws kick into normal people's life? Is there a lot of limitation of their freedom other than like a curfew in the evening? How does this operate?
We have a formal ban for any, public meetings or demonstrations, but I would not say that this influence a lot our everyday life. In all the rest, the life is usual. So I would not mention any limitations apart from the curfews, of course.
I can imagine that this is, and maintaining the rule of law is an important factor to keep up everybody's spirit, because you feel like you're still in an ordinary country with, legislative effects and new laws regulating, and people feel like, we're not in the middle of a chaos. Is that a good part of it, an important part of it?
Yeah, I would say, that people could feel safe, and people could feel that the state operates in all 3 branches, including judicial branch, as before the war. And this gives us the opportunity to maintain the state as it is. Because one of the Putin's threats about Ukraine is, and the lies about Ukraine, it's that it is false state, and we demonstrated it's not. It's exactly not, because despite of all the challenges, and the state still operates. And I think that my colleague Vitalii will talk about that in more details. But it is very interesting that this war, part of the dramas and a lot of pain and sadness it brought to our life. We can just mention some positive things, and one of them is digitalization of very, very quick and very rapid the digitalization of the country. One of that is like video conference at the court in Ukrainian courts. But I will let Vitalii to talk about that later.
Maybe before we turn to Vitalii, one quick question. Like young lawyers, do you still have a law school where people can qualify as future lawyers? And are you still hiring young lawyers into your firm so that you have an ongoing strain of people coming into the legal profession, or is it more difficult these days?
No, we have a lot of young lawyers, and I would say that it's the biggest quantity of young lawyers we have at the law firm that we ever had.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting That's an interesting point. I would say that our law firm looks very young in faces when you can see it on the website.
Yeah, I remember when I was at your law firm, it was already the team was very young, but I can imagine that that is also very promising to young people to be part of this maintaining of the rule of law and wanting to become lawyers.
Yeah, I mentioned when we discussed it last time that what we experienced it about the people leaving the law firm, trying to join the state authorities, trying to do very important, like to serve the country in these difficult times, trying to help with their brains and intelligence and their skills and experience, joining the different international institutions like United Nations organization, different international projects of technical and other assistance, a lot of charitable organizations, NGOs. And I think this is like a good sign. Mainly, many young people do that, of course, but not only young lawyers do that. But I would mention, and this is not like only in my law firm, this is, I would say, a trend in Ukrainian legal market.
Wonderful. Thank you, Oksana. Now, Vitaly, maybe you want to jump straight in and then I come with questions. But
yes, I guess I can.
You...
We can do this organically right now.
Please.
So,
yeah.
As Oksana mentioned, I believe that maintaining rule of law is very important right now in Ukraine. And state does a great job and keeping this good and running. And to give you an example, when it is an air raid in Ukraine, you do not really know what to expect, and you have to think about your life. But things may be more complicated when you do not really know where are your documents, what will happen if, for example, your house will be destroyed, will someone compensate this? Or is it a good time to file a lawsuit, for example, against your employer right now, because, war going on, do courts even work? And digital services really help to maintain rule of law right now, because as Oksana already mentioned, there were no limitations that may be felt in terms of court procedures right now. The only important one is that you can enjoy court hearings offline remotely, because it may be dangerous to go to court offline. And that's all. You can file all the documents online or via post services, and you're good to go. And really, for these 3 years, Ukraine has developed a very robust system. It was a trial and error, and it was really rapidly developing, but yeah, there was some complications. And as of right now, we do have a one-stop shop platform called DIA that ultimately helps you with practically most of things that you may expect from state. So you can register business online, albeit a company or individual entrepreneurship status. You can even get married online right now in Ukraine. I do not really think that something like that exists in any other jurisdiction right now. So we are first in this regard. You can apply for compensation if your house is destroyed. And this really helps because when you are in danger, or if you have some psychological or physical trauma, you do not really want to communicate with people offline often. So having an opportunity to do all your legal things online really helps you to focus on your personal well-being rather than worrying about documents, paperwork once. And yeah, it really helps when you can just show your passport in your phone because you have a digital document. And it also really helps in terms of corruption, actually, because now we, as I was mentioning, we have a one-stop shop on how to deal with state, and this really expands and develops to other state services. And this is a continuous development project, and we can fairly say that if this trend will continue, Ukraine may be expected to be one of the most non-corrupt governments in the entire world, because it is really hard to make something illegal when everything is processed online and via tech and supervision, because there is no human involvement ultimately, and you see results immediately via the online platform. And in terms of security, also we had some issues with well, ultimately cyber attacks, but right now state fixes this by making hard copies and copies of all the documents within the consulates outside Ukraine. So even if Ukraine will be hardly bombed, there will be no electricity, there will be copies stored outside of Ukraine, so we are good to go. And this really helps us to also increase international support because all these reforms, technical ones, are often supported by, for example, USAID, and we can see that USAID now postponed most of their activities. And other jurisdictions, for example, France and Germany, they hop in the train while there is a free space, and they try to fund similar projects, technical ones. Why? Because it really allows them to tap this experience, and this experience is very useful. We can also speak about, for example, pandemic. It may also prevent people from, going around the city because of lockdown, and having all the services of state in the digital form helps you to live your best life and continue your economy going. And so, yeah, keeping rule of law is very, very important because it allows us to, continue doing our legal job and running businesses. This also applies to employment, but I believe employment relations, but I believe this is better to be discussed within the Q&A session if there are some specific questions in this regard.
Do you see, and what kind of, you see foreign investment coming into the Ukraine, and what kind of investment is it that you can see as a lawyer in the moment?
I believe that Volodymyr will discuss this topic more broadly in the detail, but yeah, in my opinion, we do have a very prospective tech industry right now, both in terms of military tech and gov tech, because as I was mentioning, there are lots of unprecedented stuff going on in Ukraine, for example, digital marriage, etc.
What is your judgment about this recent discussion about the rare materials and the future of the mining industry in the Ukraine? Is there a discussion within the Ukraine on how to handle this in the future?
It really depends on the terms of the agreement. So,
but like factually, it seems we were all not so aware of the fact of the the rich availability of these kind of products, and I think that is certainly in a way a chance also for the country for the future development, right?
Yeah,
I understand the point about the conditions of an agreement.
It really depends on the terms of the agreement. So there might be a positivity in such a cooperation, but yeah, it may be also negative. So we must be careful here.
If you had to describe a dream that should be fulfilled in a year from now, what would it be, Vitalii?
I believe it would be a peaceful Ukraine. Peaceful and prosperous.
A peaceful Ukraine.
War aside, I can see a lot of positive stuff going on in Ukraine. So, for example, if borders will be open and there will be no war in Ukraine, I will not leave this country simply because there is a lot of interesting legal work here to do. Looking forward to work with military tech and gov tech projects here in Ukraine, and also AI, because AI framework in Ukraine is also very favorable. So yeah, I do love tech stuff, so it seems to be a nice place to stay.
Is there any technologies that you think, when we look at our audience, which you think will be on the number priority list if peace comes in or ceasefire comes in, that they will be desperately needed for the building up of the country?
I believe
we're talking about a lot about military support these days, but
yeah, I believe it will help to develop more stuff related to do something with mines, because lots of fields are now with mines, and we have to do something with that. And yeah, maybe something in regards to psychological assistance to victims and veterans in Ukraine. I believe this is very important, and I do know that there are lots of developments going on right now in Ukraine in this regard, both from the perspective of tech and just a simple offline work. So, yeah.
How do you maintain the energy system? We are really surprised. I mean, the energy system, we understand, is under constant attack, but still you're trying to maintain it. So how is this being done? Is it just by replacing machinery? Are you also thinking about bringing in a completely new technology for your energy system in the future?
So maybe Volodymyr will share more details in this regard, but
yes,
as far as I'm concerned, we do have some safety measures. We do have replacements at hand, but also we try to maintain the power and outages when we do have air raids warnings. So, for example, if we do know that there will be an attack going on to our energy systems, we shut down some of the crucial and critical power heads because it is much easier to protect them this way. So when it is up and running and it is under attack, damages will be increased. So yeah.
And Volodymyr, you wanted to show us something. You have a little presentation, I think. Would you like to keep in with this?
Yeah, I made a short presentation, not very long, and it contained pictures and videos. So I think that it won't be boring.
Go ahead.
I hope that that will be of interest for our audience. And the very first slide is my home video, which I made by myself yesterday night, just to show how we feel in Ukraine when air drones attack. Gabriela, please start. That's from my balcony. You see that in the night, drones are taking Kyiv. I live 20 kilometers near Kyiv, and air defense try to hit this drone so that it won't fly to reach Kyiv and to minimize the damage. There is no audio. I cannot hear the sound, but you can believe me that the sound is very effective, and we can feel ourselves in a in a movie. But for 3 years we get used to this, and actually my general message will be that Ukraine stands strong, and thanks to bravery of Ukrainian people and support of our true partners, which treat values, we continue, and we will continue to stand as long as we need until our victory. So Gabriela, please, next slide. This slide about drone attacks, just to show the general picture for your understanding. This the last night, Russia launched 185 Shaheds and other air drones against Ukrainian, and you can see that 184 drones failed to reach their targets. Fortunately, the effectiveness of our Ukrainian air defense is fantastic, and of course these drones make many harm and many people die, but you see that a few percents hit their targets. And the night before, from 22nd to 23 February, we have had an anti-record from the very beginning of this war. 267 drones was sent to Ukrainian cities. And you can see that absolute majority of these drones failed to reach their target, unless a few, which unfortunately made harm. Still, Ukraine strikes back, but unlike Russia, Ukrainian forces attack only objects and targets which are critical to Russian army. And this last night, we have successfully attacked oil refinery in Ryazan. It's almost 500 kilometers from Ukrainian boundary. And you can see on the map, it's quite close to Moscow, around 20 kilometers, but generally Ukraine attacks only those factories and facilities which support Russian army, so that minimize their influence as we can. The general picture you can see for January, more than 2,500 drones were sent against Ukrainian cities. And you can see the effectiveness of these attacks. Thanks to Ukrainian army, most of these drones are hit before they reach their targets. Next slide, please. I will make general overview of the Ukrainian investment market. I'm a partner and head of corporate practice. I understand that you deal mostly with employment matters, so I do not want to overburden you with our corporate stuff. But if you are interested in this and want some deep dive, please feel free to contact me in LinkedIn, write me, and I will be more than happy to share a bit more details about corporate landscape. But I will make a general sketch about our main development in Ukraine. So 2024 was very important year in terms of state sector, because state sector now is very important for Ukraine. Why? Because all that financial aid which we receive from our foreign partners, and we are very appreciate this support, but we cannot spend it on our military expenses directly. So financial expenses to finance the army, to pay salaries, etc., is financed by our state itself. And in turn, the state takes money from taxes and from income generated by state-owned enterprises. That's why it is critical now for Ukraine to have this sector efficient, transparent, so that it properly operates and properly generates income to the budget. So in February, the parliament approved very significant legislative update to bring this state sector closer to OECD corporate governance rules. And actually, that was in dialogue quite long and quite hard with our partners, including European Union, European Commission, US, etc. And they managed to get some compromise, which Ukraine adopted in this law. And to fulfill this update, the government adopted quite recently in November 24, the state ownership policy. That is the very important document, because actually it's a quite sophisticated rules, which in detail describe how the state should manage. You can see nearly 3,000 state-owned enterprises, how to properly do the state really need so many state-owned enterprises? Of course not. And in this case, what state-owned enterprises is reasonable to keep in state ownership, and absolute majority must be privatized or liquidated. And that's the aligned intention and plan, not only intention, but specific plan of the government for the nearest years. And our firm is proud that we were involved in this work. As a legal consultant for 10 months of our work, we assisted Ministry of Economy in drafting the state ownership policy. So that was the most important project for our corporate practice last year. And we already receive compliments for these new procedures, which are really helpful for the state-owned enterprises. And I can but mention that this work was financed by our partners. There is a multinational donors account administrated by European Bank and Reconstruction and Development, and they contributed to this work very much. Thank you. Next slide, please. The first good news are that sea logistics is recovering. within the first year of the full-scale invasion in 2022, I visited my clients, visited many investment conferences, and the topic number one was restricted logistics, because Ukrainian producers could not export their products via sea, because Russian fleet blocked actually Black Sea, and our agricultural and metal producers could not export their production. Fortunately, recently, this problem is not very hard anymore, because Ukrainian Navy sank around 30% of the aggressor's fleet. This picture was taken by me last week. I visited the Defense Tech conference, very big, a few thousand participants, and I will show a bit more pictures later, but this picture shows that you can see this island in the north, that the Crimea, who doesn't know. Crimea is, of course, Ukraine. And when the war started, all this island was surrounded by Russian fleet, and actually their ships were across this Crimea, and that you can see Odessa in the north western part, and we couldn't, our ships and foreign ships couldn't use their support. However, now you see that this name Novorossiysk and all these survived Russian ships now very rarely leave this Novorossiysk port, which is located much further from Ukrainian coast, and it eased our Ukrainian sea logistics, and it actually allows to export Ukrainian goods throughout the world. That's very important. And I can but share very cool news that on 31st December, Ukrainian naval drones shot down 2 Russian helicopters. That's absolutely fantastic. And it's first time in the world when such military result was possible. A bit later, I will show you sea drones, maybe not exactly the same, but how these sea drones looks like. So yeah, thanks. Generally, private sector shows resilience, and upon logistic recovery, now labor force availability is a primary concern for business. At least what I hear from, let's say, 9 out of 10 our contacts. Business complains that that's of course a problem, because many men are drafted to defend the country. Women with the children, some women with children search for some more safety and live outside Ukraine. And for any business, it's a challenge to make sustainable stuff. In Ukraine, in our firm for the last year, if I'm not mistaken, Oksana, correct me if I'm wrong, we hired only ladies as lawyers. I do not remember that we hire guys. Maybe a few, but absolute majority are girls and women.
In my team, I hired a guy. So yeah, I would say that we hire guys, but this proportion is of course present.
Yeah. Another problem which Burkard already mentioned is electricity outages. That's very important challenge, because for your understanding, we have had around 18 megawatts, and now we have around 9, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that's some corrections, but very roughly around half of our electricity generation capacity we lost. How we deal with it? Burkard asked. We deal with it by more, I would say, sustainable and efficient approach for the usage. On one hand, on the other hand, business invest in diversified electricity production. to hedge these risks when we cannot use the common electricity facility, then business use some generators. I live in an apartment and I bought electricity generator, which allows me to live without centralized electricity for from 8 to 12 hours. And fortunately, I do not remember, actually there was no day when we were without electricity longer than 5-6 hours, at least in Kyiv. So that's a question for business, especially for business which is very for which electricity is crucial resource, but that's not the situation. So despite these challenges, both local and foreign businesses continue to invest, and the M&A market is more or less recovering. Of course, it's far from desired conditions. I am fair with you. Of course, we would like as a corporate lawyers to have more deals, but we have deals. And actually in 2023, our team advised on probably the biggest deal for the year. At least the engaged investment bankers reported that this deal was the biggest for the year. And I personally thanked to my client, because my client was the buyer, so we were on the buyer side. I thanked to him that he spent 7-digit amount for an asset in Ukraine. And I thanked him for that he believes in Ukraine, and he shares his believing in Ukraine with others. And in the last year, probably you saw in media that we had a huge deal for 500 million acquisition of telecom assets by French buyers. So like people sometimes say that things are not great, not terrible. So we are in such a situation that, of course, we would like to have more activity, but the trend is positive, I would say. Despite 2022, when everybody just be shocked and nobody made any investments, now we have deals, and hopefully their number will increase.
Thank you so much. I think one of the reasons why we are having this conversation is, we don't want to be fixed on the war. We want to have a little bit of a forward-looking, and I think M&A investment, foreign investment opportunities, and also that's why I'm stressing this every time we're having this conversation. An ongoing rule of law with the legal system are the foundry and a great basis for whatever will come next, hopefully. And maybe, Vitalii, you're absolutely right. And it will bring peace to your country, and we will help rebuilding your country. But I think it is important for our audience to understand that, and that's why we're having this conversation, that throughout this war, you as lawyers have been operating a legal system that is at its edge, of course, but it's not overruled by martial laws, but it's a legal system that people can rely on, and then will probably now help in bringing foreign investment into the country, as people will have more and more trust in their assets being protected. Yeah. From your point of view, is there any particular industry that you would think should be investing immediately in your country?
I'm going straight to this question.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Next slide.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you show next? That's as I mentioned, this is a few pictures from recent Defense Tech Innovation Forum, and that's very booming sphere now. This was last Tuesday and Wednesday, so it's absolutely new story. You can see the picture in the middle, so you can assess the attention and interest to this event. I, as a partner of law firm, you well understand that I visit business conferences very frequently, And I can say for the recent time, that was probably the most overcrowded conference in which I participated. And very roughly, and in my opinion, around 40 to 50% were foreigners in this conference. So attention of foreign investors to this defense tech industry is extremely high now. So in the left side, you can see these naval drones. So this boat, which has no pilot, actually used in naval operation. And in the right side, you can see me using the simulation of air defense against drones. I hit 3 or 4. But the guys who, this is a Browning machine gun, and this simulation actually used by soldiers to train before their real air defense work. They made compliments to me, say that I'm pretty fine, but I have a potential because I hit on the 3 or 4. I can say that it's not very easy. Another big sector is agricultural. It's historically the asset and the crown of Ukrainian economy. We have certain developments. In last year, Ukrainian companies have been permitted to own agricultural land. Previously, this privilege was reserved only for Ukrainian citizens, and this change actually spurred some internal restructuring, new transaction within agricultural sector. Unfortunately, for now, foreigners cannot buy agricultural land and cannot buy shares in the companies which own agricultural land until referendum support this permit. And for now, this referendum is not in agenda, so we cannot say when it can be. But there are certain corporate mechanisms which allow foreign investors to secure their investment in agricultural land specifically. And of course, you well understand that agricultural sector, it's not only investing in land, it's investment in production, and we see interest in very technologically advanced approach to agricultural sector. Average price remain quite low, and you can see that it varies from 1,200 to 2,000, and now it depends from the location. We have one M&A deal quite big in a pipeline, but the buyer expects when will be some clarity with the front line, because actually this asset is located quite close to the front lines on the northern part of the Ukraine, and that's why our client is reluctant to close the deal right now. But we know that the transaction in western part of Ukraine and in the southern part of Ukraine actually are closing. Yeah, we are approaching to the end, and I was thinking how to share our feeling about what we feel in Ukraine, and I remind that there is a great dialogue in this film and this book. I think that you know this also. We love it in Ukraine, so you can see that. Nobody of us wish to have this happen, but as Gandalf say, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us, and that what we actually do. Next slide, please. Just to share how we personally manage and how it helps us to remain and to keep our psychological stability. We established a charitable fund. It started from the very beginning of the full-scale war in February 22 as an initiative, but as a legal entity in early 2023, our team supported with all corporate work this fund. And for now, we provided aid for more than $1 million. You can see the main our activity. Our main focus for now is equipment of KSEVAX. It's machines which take injured soldiers from the front line back from the front line, so that to provide medical assistance to them. And we have very, very cool partners in Europe, namely in Germany. They acquire the civil cars and provide us with civil cars. And what we do in Ukraine, we equip these civil cars with specific military and medical aid, so that they can serve as a KSEVAC for military purposes. And there is a 60 minutes golden rule, which means that if the injured soldier was evacuated within the first hour, his chances to stay alive dramatically rise. And we managed to make this golden rule work. And what is very pleasant for me, that our clients support this work, and my few clients fund this initiative, and thanks for their support. We made more than 10 evacs for 2024, and plan to increase this number in 2025. So if any one of your firms are interested in how to practically help Ukraine, feel free to scan this QR code or contact me. I will be more than happy to share more details with you. Generally, that's all what I wanted to share with you, but I am open for Q&A session, and please feel free. And thank you very much for your interest. It's very important for us that you are with us. And in this third sad anniversary, Ukraine are not alone. And Burkard asked Vitalii about his dream. I can say that my dream is that world will be based on the values, not on the power, but on the values. And I treat Ukraine not separately. I do not want peace only for Ukraine. I want peace for Europe and for the whole world. Because if we will allow to use the power in a manner how Russia uses it, the house will be not only in Ukraine. The house will be anywhere through our planet. That's why we very thank to all countries and all peoples, because countries are peoples, who are on the right side and who treat values and recognize boundaries and all which is matter for civilized people. Thank you very much.
Oksana, Vitalii, Volodymyr, thank you very much. There's not a lot I can add to this, what you've just been saying. All I want to say, you're not alone, neither in our organization, not from our audience and from the whole Western world. And we wish you well, we wish your family well, and we hope that we will have a next anniversary in peace, in a good peace for the Ukraine, not a bad peace. And you can be assured that you are in our hearts every day. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining this call under these terrible circumstances. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening in. If you have questions, please contact our colleagues directly. They are fully available. I know this as successful lawyers. They are available day and night, and
Sure.
and we can trust on them. So thank you very much to the whole firm, and good luck, and stay safe, please. Yeah, stay healthy and safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Take
Well,
care.
as Burkard mentioned, for any further questions, you can contact our panelists on email. And finally, again, I would like to thank everyone for attending and our panelists for their insights today. So with that, this webinar is now over, and thank you and have a great end of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.